Hey everyone, Lance again and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I want to talk a little bit about wet pallets, and this comes off the back of a request from a subscriber, also called Lance. It's not me, I swear. He essentially asked if I could talk a little bit about wet pallets and the paints I use and like, because he has now met me in real life. I think the understanding there is that like I'm not paid by these companies, and you don't know usually when listening to a YouTube video what type of history those particular people have with the brands. Are they paid and sponsored and stuff like that? Well, it's illegal to talk about a thing if you are sponsored by them without announcing it. But in this instance, I'm not sponsored, so take that for what you will. On the flip side though, I do stock these products, so I am selling them ultimately. So when I'm talking about them, you can bear that in mind and decide for yourself whether or not you think this is a legit, these are legit criticisms or reviews or whatever, right? Now, the ones that I do stock, for the most part, I have used and I own. And the reason I stock a lot of products is because I've at least tried them. And when I say tried them, I don't play all the games and stuff like that, but a lot of products I will use or try, and if I like them, then I'm more inclined to purchase them because I have some experience with them. So all the paint ranges that I stock, I have used. I have opened and assembled GW miniatures. I've seen the quality of War Machine and Bolt Action and stuff like that. So when I know they're good quality, at least, not necessarily good gameplay, I know they're good quality products, then I will stock them. And the same goes for wet pallets and other things as well, right? And even then, if I do get something in that I am intrigued by, and is a bit more ambiguous to me because I've not used them, I will use them sometimes anyway, just to see whether or not they're a good fit, or whether or not I'll be stocking more of them in future, if that makes sense. Anywho, let's get to talking about wet pallets, shall we? Okay, so let's give people context. What is a wet pallet? So in a nutshell, it's a way of essentially keeping your paint hydrated for longer sessions, right? If you put acrylic paint on a dry pallet, so like, I don't know, a plastic pallet or something like that, or just put it on any surface other than something that's wet, then the medium inside will, or any water you add to it, will evaporate and eventually dry. And that, with acrylic paints, by their nature and design for miniatures, happens very quickly. You're talking less than a minute in most cases. So the point of the wet pallet is to keep that paint malleable and usable for a longer period of time. Now, it's not magic. It's not going to keep your paints hydrated for weeks upon weeks upon weeks. But for a long painting session, it can definitely help. Online and stuff like that, and in some conversations, some people will say a wet palette doesn't make you a better painter. I challenge that. I think a tool that can be more convenient and get you into painting quicker, take away some of the guesswork, and also make it a bit more of a free-flowing experience, can absolutely make you a better painter. So even though it's not directly applying paint to your miniature, and it's not teaching you colour theory or anything like that, if it's taking some of that pressure away and getting you into painting quicker, then a wet palette is absolutely going to make you a better painter in that sense. So it's like these people who say, yeah, a wet palette won't make you a better painter, but yet they're using Kolinsky sable brushes. Why is that? Do they make you a better painter? Do they take some of that guesswork out? Do they, provide you with a better tip? Why aren't you always using synthetics? Do you get what I mean? So in that sense, these people say you don't need a wet palette, X, Y, Z. Look at your individual use case and how you engage with the hobby, and you can determine then whether or not you feel like you need a wet palette. So for me, in my experience, I originally started out by making my own wet palette, which was essentially some paper towel, so this stuff, right? Good old paper towel, and then parchment paper, non-waxy parchment paper, and then wetting the paper towel and then putting the paint on the parchment paper. Now, for me, it works brilliantly. My friend Matt, who paints, he almost does like this little ritual before he paints where he's setting this stuff up. That's absolutely perfect. It works for him, you know, power to him, and he's a great painter, yeah? So, you know, you can absolutely DIY and do your own thing. For me though, one of my obstacles for painting was essentially, I want less fuss to get me into the stuff I enjoy, which is the painting itself, yeah? So that's where I went from making my own to purchasing a set that I could then use. And then from there, I purchased more and more and more because I felt like they offered me more value and got me into the painting quicker and with just less hassle. So the first one I purchased was this one from Army Painter, their little wall palette brush holder combo thing. So it comes in a box like that. It's about £20, yeah? And what you get inside is this unit here has a little bit of an elastic brace on it, and that's to try and keep it tight. You open it up, it's got the lid. Inside, it's got a little brush holder, which can be useful, right? You can also use this as a bit of a dry palette if you want. I use this for traveling mainly. Now I use it I've got two of them. I use one for traveling and one that I've got just in store for myself or people to use if needed. You also get the sponge. You can tell this one has absolutely been battered because it's got paint all over it. And you also get a lot of hydration paper, so parchment, which is cut specifically for it. If I remember right, yeah, it's 50 hydro sheets and 2 hydro foams, sponges. So 2 sponges, 50 sheets. And this, for the start of my painting journey, is brilliant, and I still use it daily. This is wet right now. What I tend to use this for now is, you know, if I'm mixing something I'm a bit unsure of, and I'm going to experiment a lot, or you know, even I'll make it damp just ever so slightly, and I'll wax some metallics on there, or some of the thicker contrast paints that I use. Or yeah, if there's anything that I'm pretty unsure of, or I know is a bit more abrasive as part of the process, I'll use this one. It's essentially something that is sacrificial in that sense. Now, for £20, you get a good chunk of sheets in there, which are readily available for most places to refill. I've not even gone through those sheets. I did move on to something else prior to that, but I still have them. I'm amongst the people who you can wipe some sheets clean, and you can do that with some of the Army Painter ones. But, you know, if I've only used a corner of a sheet, then I will, at the end of a painting session, I will get rid of any, because, you know, these don't trap the air inside as frequently, so water evaporates and can escape, so it dries up. You give this a week. If you hydrate it well enough, you give it about a week and it'll probably dry out again. Depending on your climate and stuff like that, right? So it's a gamble as to whether or not I'll be back to it in time to actually use it in any quick fashion. So I tend to wipe it clean or wipe the excess off, but then I'll use the other parts of the paper that I've not used in the past, just to save me, you know, having to use new paper, right? But again, the Army Painter one, it's cheap at £20. It's good build quality. It feels nice, but you know, it's not as airtight as it probably could be. And you know, the hydration paper and the sponge are fine, but they're not reusable. But you do get some more in the box. For all intents and purposes, I would say like this. Again, in my experience, right? I know there's other brands out there like Green Stuff World, Nick Pro, Vallejo do one now, which is of this design. With the elastic strap around it. They're all much of a muchness, in all fairness, but this is a good starting point. You know, if you're wanting to take the next leap after making one for yourself and thinking, I want something that's just a bit more get up and go, then the Army Painter ones are a solid bet, hence why I stock them. And I do use 2 of them. So the next one up from that is the Wargamers edition of the Army Painter palette. So it's much the same as the smaller one with the elastic band round it. It comes with a well palette inside and a compartment to hold your brushes in. It's pretty much a similar product. The Wet Palette is obviously a design that can benefit people if you're using, like, you know, contrasts or metallic paints that you don't want to put on your parchment paper or sponge. You can drop them in the Wet Palette. You do have to clean them out afterwards. They're not the easiest thing in the world. They're not like those silicone poppers where you can just pop it out. You will need to, sometimes if you leave it for a long time, you might need to get some like IPA alcohol in there to clean it. But again, it's just bigger. It's the same type of product, 50 sheets, 2 of the hydration foams or sponges. It's an elastic band, so it's not super airtight. It's much of a muchness, but if you value space, I use a large one now, which I will show you shortly, purely so that I can mix in different corners and I can mix again more freely, if that makes sense, mix paints and stuff like that and experiment a bit more. I've just got more room to play with. Then this could be the one for you then. It's $32.99 in this instance. But again, Army Painter makes some solid products now. So, you know, if you're looking for more real estate to actually use, then this could do the trick. If you like the one that's there and you've used that before, then this could be the next logical leap, right? So, moving on to another brand that we stock, you know, well-known, Redgrass Games. They pretty much just make wet pallets, right? That is primarily their business. I know they make other stuff now like brushes, lights, and they make paint handles and stuff like that, but they're known for their wet pallets. So they currently make 3 in the range, and we've got 1 of each currently. You got this one, the starting one, the Painter Light. This is of a similar design to the stuff that I've just shown you, which has the elastic band around it. The seal's not like immensely airtight. It's much of a muchness to the Army Painter one. I've personally not used this one, so, you know, take my commentary on this as you will. This is not a review of this particular product. It's £1 more expensive, so $20.99 in this instance, more expensive than the Army Painter one of similar design. But, you know, it's made by Redgrass Games. I swear by these as a brand. But for me, the ethos to buying this in and stocking it was I wanted to provide an alternative rather than just, oh, it's just the Army Painter one at that price point. I wanted to provide an alternative. Plus, I tend to try and go for the, you know, the cheap and cheerful segment, the medium, and then the, I guess, more, not necessarily professional, but the hardcore segment, if that makes sense. So I always try and offer at least three price points for a tool or something like that, so that people can at least engage at different price points. So, not used it personally. I hear it's much of a muchness when it comes to the Army Painter one, so very similar in that nature, but it's made by Redgrass Games, so I would say yes again. Does it come with anything in particular? So it's the band, the palette itself, so you get 2 hydration foam pads and 50 sheets of the hydration paper. So the same as the Army Painter one. Now, the next 2 are the ones that I use essentially, and the reason I stock them is because I use them more than anything else, and I can swear by the product in that sense. So these two. So you have the Painter 2 and then the Studio XL2. Yep. So I'll put these boxes down. So again, it comes with foam, and in this instance, they come with reusable hydration paper. But I'll show you the Studio XL, and then you scale that down, and that's what the Painter 2 is. So this is the wet palette. You've probably seen this. I think loads of people have tried to sell this now. So like I said, tried to sell it. They sell it, and they sell it successfully. You know, I think Squidmar uses it, and I think he's got a version with his own stuff on it. I've seen other YouTubers talk about this palette, but it is good. It's a good palette. I think the things that set it apart for me, yeah, it's great in size. The plastic feels good quality. The seal though is the thing, one of the big selling points for me. So you notice on this, there's no elastic band trapping it in. It does it itself. The lid takes some force to get open, right? So I've already got some paint on there. I've not used this for about a week, and this paint reactivate that with a little bit of water now if I wanted to. It's still damp, and the good thing about this one as well, so yeah, not only is it airtight, I believe the foam is mold resistant. So some climates have to account for mold potentially growing in certain environments. So in this instance, the foam in here is mold resistant, so I won't do that. Now the thing that sets it apart for me, and some people have said they don't like the hydration paper that comes in here because they think it, well, in their experience, mixing paint is not as good. But for me, it's different, absolutely. Not as good, I would not say that. I would say you just have to accommodate for it or work slightly differently, right? It's just, because it's a different type of paper, its properties are slightly different, so the paint is hydrated slightly differently, so you just need to paint, you know, get used to the way that works, if that makes sense. So this paper itself is reusable. You can screw it up under a tap. I think in their video they show you with soapy water and stuff like that, and you know, it gets rid of most of it, and then you can just plop it back in and it's good to go again. And they say you can reuse it, you know, 10 to 15 times or something like that. Now for me, I don't do that. What I do is I'll get some water and a paper towel and I'll just wipe it off. So give me a second and I'll do this. So there you go, paper towel, a bit of water, and that paint that was been there for about a week is now completely gone, and I can just use that again. Now they say, oh, 10 to 15 times you can reuse that. I'm on about 50, 60 times now, I think, of reusing this. And again, like I mentioned earlier when I used the Army Painter one, if I just use a corner, then the next time I come to use it, I just use the alternate corner. I do the same with this, so I'll use it that way, and the next time I'll use it that way, and then I'll use it that way, just to, you know, spread out the use of this particular hydration paper, or reusable membrane, I think they call it. And I've had loads of uses out of this. And you get a chunk of these in the box. Let me just double check. In both the Painter version 2 and the Studio XL, you get 15 membranes to reuse and 2 of the foam pads. You can buy normal parchment paper for this. They do sell it. They fit it. They sell it in cuts for the XL and the Painter 2. So if you don't like the way the reusable membrane works, then you've got the you've got the parchment paper type alternative, the hydration sheet alternative. But if you like the reusable membrane, you can buy them separately as well. Again, it came with 15. I'm still on the first one and still on the first foam, and you can, you know, you take these out, you put some soap in, you know, soap, warm water, and yeah, clean them. They're dead easy, super easy. And then, again, you can see the seal around the side of this. It's like, I don't know, rubber, silicone or something like that. But it feels super durable. And that, like I say, the plastic quality in this just feels like a step above everything else. You know, they have little water channel dimple things in the bottom. You can crack loads of water in there. Throw this lid on, make sure it's sealed, and you know, there's water in there at the moment, by the way, not going anywhere. So yeah, Red Grass Games, the Painter version 2 and the Studio 2 XL, I can 100% equivocally recommend. They retail for, so the Painter 2, if you like the smaller form factor and you like the idea of the reusable sheets, the higher build quality, is $29.99 in this instance. And then the Studio XL2 is $44.99. It's a larger one, obviously. Now, you know, $44.99 is, I would say for a wet palette, is obviously expensive, right? The way I came to think about, I mean, this is the way I think about products in general, to be fair. It's the buy right or buy twice mentality. Now, I know that's not necessarily the case with absolutely everything, but in most cases, again, if it's coming from a reputable brand, it's usually worth the money in that sense. The reason these are more expensive in the UK as well I say more expensive in the UK. The reason they are more expensive is in our country, we have to import them, right? So there's an additional cost to all that, but they are good quality. Now, can it be said that there is diminishing returns? Absolutely. Like in most products, the more you spend, the less of a difference it ultimately will make. I believe there's a bit of a, what do they call it, a bell curve to that. So the more, you know, you'll get a point where you go from making your own, yeah, which is here, to purchasing some money, sorry, to parting with some money and purchasing one. You might only get a small blip. Yeah. Now, if you were to double that money, you would actually probably get a far higher quality. So, you know, you start with this, which is not too dissimilar from using your own in that sense. But then you double that money, you get the Studio XL pretty much. Then this is far better than, in my opinion, again, take it for what you will, far better than just making your own. Now, you know, can you pay even more for some wet pallets? Yeah, I've seen a couple more wet pallets that are more expensive. I can't say I've used them, so, you know, again, take it for what you will. But I can't see them being that much better than what's on offer here. So, you know, that curve, that diminishing returns could absolutely kick in. You know, go back to the original question, like, will this make you a better painter? Just to reiterate. So you can, my friend Matt, he uses his own made up creation, and he's a great painter. So absolutely you can do it with the tools in the shed type of thing. But for some people who don't want to do that ritual of assembling their wet palette prior to engaging in painting, and they just want to get straight to painting, then cracking open one of these, throwing in some water and paint, and then getting going can absolutely get you into the process far quicker, with a lot less guesswork and stress. Stress, you know, in a loose term. With a lot less guesswork and stuff. Gets you into the action, the stuff that you might enjoy, which should ultimately, in turn, if you're in there quicker, you're doing more of it, make you a better painter in that sense. So, yeah, like any tool, it's a tool. It's how you put it to use in your realm of creativity, right? So that's all I actually have for wet pallets. Now, other brands do it. Like I said, there's other cheaper alternatives to these. There's Green Stuff World, there's Nick Pro. I'd imagine they're very, very similar to, I mean, I've seen some of them in real life, right, anyway. They come with the parchment paper, they come with hydration sheets. They're very much of a muchness when it comes to the ones like the Army Painter one with the band on. I've not seen many. I think I've only seen one other, and I can't remember the name of it, that has like the rubber seal and that type of stuff. Again, I can't speak for that, but I imagine it probably works in a very similar manner to this. Now, people can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. I've not seen any other one which has the reusable type of membrane, and that's what Redgrass Games has become known for. So in that instance, that is what I would recommend. And it's not, again, I know money is, it's, you know, for some people it's hard to come by, it's relative and stuff like that. For me, if you're passionate about the hobby, the difference in price between 20 and 45 or 32 for the large, so it would be 20 and 30 for the same size one, or it'll be 32 and 44 for the larger ones. That to me is not much of a difference, especially given the fact that you can reuse the membrane sheets, right? You know what I mean? So you spend a lot less in the long run. Buy right, buy twice. Okay, I've not got paints out and thrown paints in this and told you and all this type of jazz, like which paint's better to use and what not. Yeah, that's another video rabbit hole to go down. Just again, based on experience going from the Army Painter to the Redgrass Games one, did I notice anything that was a bit different? Yes. So one of my go-to paint ranges is Monument Hobbies. They feel very hydrophilic. So when you put them on the Redgrass Games one, if you leave them there for longer, which I used to, you know, I would leave them on there for a chunk of time on the Army Painter one, you know, a good couple of hours. The Army Painter one would almost, they would separate and and travel a lot less. Whereas on the reusable membranes for the Redgrass Games StudioWorks L2, I put it down, and you know, if I'm still painting within a couple of hours, they've travelled, and if you didn't keep the paints apart from each other, they'd start to get towards each other and mix. Do you know what I mean? So hydrophilic paints, or paints that are very I don't know, medium heavy, I guess, they tend to travel and separate on this. You could put less water in and that would stop that, but that wouldn't be applicable to other paint brands that I might pop on the palette. So you just got to be mindful. Put less Monument Hobby stuff. This is all my experience, right? Put less Monument Hobby stuff on the palette, and since doing that, been fine. No issues really. That was the only real, like, almost like chemical / reaction issue. I say issue. It was just I may have been putting too much down for this particular design of palette, right? Like I said earlier, just getting used to working slightly differently to accommodate, no, not even accommodate, to work with the different type of membrane. It's just getting used to it because it's a different tool ultimately. So before I start going super deep and rambling, I'm gonna leave it there. If you're still watching the video, thank you. A thumbs up and a subscribe always helps. You know, keep me in the algorithm and all that good stuff. If there's any other videos like this that you want to, see, paints will be a good one at some point now. We'll definitely talk about. Some people have reached out and asked, like, how do I sculpt miniatures and all that type of stuff. If I have the time and I can fit it in this format, and you know, it's not too much of an egregious setup in the time I've got early in the morning, then I can absolutely talk about that stuff. So yeah, suggestions in the comments down below. Also, visit the website. You know, we have a store, www.Epics'N'Stuffs.com. Make a purchase, and obviously we'll send it out to you. And then we've got the Patreon as well, where you can get some free STLs, and that is another way of supporting the channel and everything we do. I'll leave it there. Have fun, everyone. Take care. Happy hobbying. Bye for now.